Alors, Jean-Marc Dupont ici à ISTE2016, préparant la session de Sylvia Martinez, Make it, wear it, learn it. On a parlé beaucoup de la technologie portable, donc j'ai hâte de voir l'auteur du livre qu'on a fait la promotion au conseil sur tout le mouvement de Maker, Invent to Learn, Sylvia Martinez, qui va discuter un peu de sa perspective sur le monde de l'éducation et le Maker Movement. La session commence à 2h30, donc on s'apprête à commencer bientôt, dans à peu près 5 minutes. On devrait commencer dans 3 minutes.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for coming back after lunch on this gorgeous day. I'm sure it was tempting to run out and hike or play or take a nap or do something fun, but here you are, good citizens. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about wearables. And wearables in the context of education. What can you make that fits in a classroom, teaches STEM and other content areas, and is fun to wear? Now, certainly wearables have been thought of for many years. There have been other examples of wearables like Google Glass and things like that. But I'm going to show you a whole range of options, materials, including computers and not including computers, and talk about how these things fit in the classroom, plus some really small things that are happening out in the wide world that are just incredible things to come. So, my name is Sylvia Martinez. Some of you may know me. I wrote a book about 3 years ago, co-authored with Gary Shader, called Invent to Learn, Making Teaching and Engineering in the Classroom. It was one of the first books to connect the Maker movement to teaching in classrooms. And judging by ISTE this year, it's definitely caught on. 3 years ago, Gary and I probably had the only maker sessions on the program here at ISTE, and now there's making everywhere, which is fantastic, giving kids the opportunity to do real things in fun ways with fantastic new technology. This book and other books, we've been publishing a number of books. Since the Age of Learning, we've published about 7 other books on making and engineering in the classroom, many written by educators, one written by a young girl named super awesome Sylvia, not me. I'm only sort of awesome. She is 14 and she wrote and illustrated this book about Arduino. Brand new, we just introduced a book called K3 Making in the K3 Classroom by a teacher who's written a how-to manual on how to do making for kindergarten through second grade. So as you get ready for this session today, if you wouldn't mind taking out your phone, your iPad, your device, whatever you have, if you could send an email to friend@inventtolearn.com, you will get all the information that's in this session. There's a digital handout. You will be added to our newsletter list. Don't worry, I won't spam you. We're not that ambitious. You will get occasional news about new books, opportunities, events, professional development around making, engineering, wearables, girls in STEM, things like that. So many of you know about the maker movement. The maker movement is a movement, a global revolution that's happening right now in the world, where people are taking charge of their own problems. And when they solve them, they share them with the world. This is happening in communities, in libraries, museums, and in schools. So the things that are interesting about the maker movement is this sort of can-do attitude where anything that seems like a problem to you, you can solve it. You can be a part of the solution in your community or in the wider world. Wearables is part of this maker movement because the things that people are using to make wearable devices are, a lot of them come from the maker movement. Things that are very reliable, very cheap, very easy to use, and people are all over the world. Now, we could talk the whole hour probably about the market for wearable technology. Things like Fitbits and Google Glass. It's growing by leaps and bounds. But that's really not interesting me. What interests me is the educational tool, the educational way these things can be used. And when I talk to schools about the maker movement in general, I tend to talk about things that work in the classroom. So not everything works in the classroom. Some things are toys, some things are dangerous, some things are too expensive, unreliable. And there's lots of reasons not to use things, but there are good reasons to choose certain kinds of tools and materials. In our book, we focus on 3 what we call game changers, kind of big buckets of maker technology. Computer-controlled fabrication, meaning 3D printing or subtractive technology like lathes and CNC machines that can cut materials. The second bucket is physical computing, that's connecting the digital world to the analog world. And the third is programming. Now, all these other things sort of fit alongside these 3 game changers. But in our book, we make the case that these game changers have the most opportunity to really change education and the way kids see themselves and see the world. Most of the wearable technology that people have seen in schools falls into the physical computing bucket. So this is the same bucket as Arduinos, as robotics, as Raspberry Pi, things that connect the digital world to the real world. You're collecting data from the real world, you're putting out outputs to the real world, you're controlling motors, sensors, and lights, and you make things happen in the real world with your computational technology. As an aspect of this is wearable technology. For example, that dress in the photo has LEDs attached to it, but the LEDs are controlled by sensors that read levels of different kinds of pollutants in the air. So what she's wearing is a pollution sensing gown. It changes due to the atmosphere that you're walking through. These kinds of wearables are things that your kids can make today. This doesn't cost $1 million. This is an out of reach kind of a project. So I want to talk today about how to get there. So wearables, I think, are important in the classroom for 3 reasons. One, they're personal, right? What's more personal than what you put on your body? And we talk about personalized learning. personal needs of your person. Wearables certainly fall in that category. They're portable, they can go with you. They can go to your party, your home, your school, your class, your anywhere you want. And they're expressive. They let kids express themselves in artistic ways combined with electronics and computers that I think goes over and above making a robot or some of the other kinds of computing activities. So there are real wearable technologies in the real world. How many people have Fitbits? Right? And more every day. That's a wearable technology. There's a lot of new medical uses with soft, pliable circuitry that fits on your body, like tattoos. This one monitors for diabetes. So there's a lot of these things that are coming that can kind of fall into the general wearable bucket. Now that's something that's probably not going to be something you can do with kids, but it's kind of nice to show them the fantastic things that are out there for inspiration, like the Synapse, a 3D printed dress that reads your mind. So you wear an electro, something, a headband that reads your EKGs or whatever, and it feeds the dress, which is 3D printed, in a new pliable 3D printed kind of material, and lights up the lights in different ways. If you saw the Met Gala this year, the theme was technology, and there were people wearing, futuristic bondage gear, but there were a lot of people wearing things that interacted with the environment. That if you tweeted a certain hashtag, the dress would turn a certain color. People like IBM and Intel were coordinating with designers. If you go on the site Cutie Circuit, you can buy for only 1,600 pounds, which maybe is a deal these days, who knows? You can buy it as a purse and program what the purse says. But you know what? You can make that purse too for a lot less than $1,600. Other examples are like Imogen P, who's a musician. Let me show you what she does, the technology that she wears. Here, function, and then something up here. So these gloves have traditional bend sensors inside, and this measures this kind of thing. So this may be 0, and this may be 127. And we're also using these fourchettes in here to get that kind of that action as well. And you'll see there is this posture, which is the 4 bigger point. It changes to different sound. Really good. And in here, it's going from left to right. So these guys are the waist guys, and very exciting development. Everything's in. The main difference is it's now Wi-Fi enabled, and also we're trying to separate the hard tech from the soft tech. And at the moment, this is like in between. This still has the bend sensors, but it's also starting to look into e-textiles, which is electronic textiles. So we can actually get the bend information through the difference in how much the pink bit is looking. It's really exciting to see what people might do with it. So the software is going to be open source instead of hardware, and can't wait to see. They're really exciting. We really feel that they are going to change the way that we made it. So that's an example of something that exists in the real world, and that is about 3 years old. For less than $100 in parts, you can do what she's doing. Because they put these plans online. When she says everything's open source, she means it. She's hoping that other people take their designs and play around with them. The fabric that they use changes resistance as it moves, as you put pressure on it. The resistance can be measured and detected by the microprocessor. The microprocessor that can control lights or sound or anything you want. So this is the promise of making movement, that not only are these fantastic things available, but that your kids can participate in making them better. You can take her plans, build, and change, and make them better. And it's not a joke. People really are doing these things, and kids are participating in this way. Now, you can start very simple. You don't have to start like that. This is a very simple circuit, sewn on felt, with LED eyes that light up. Super cute. Also could be a wearable technology, appropriate for very young kids. So, how do we get there? I think there's 4 parts to wearables that I want to talk about today. And number 1 is the construction. What are you basing this on? Are you making a jacket? What's it made out of? What's the fabric made out of? Now you can use traditional fabrics and traditional construction techniques like sewing and crochet, or you can use 3D printing to make a 3D printed dress. There are new fiber optic materials, there are luminescent materials, there are biomaterials, there are reactive fabrics, for instance, that you have, say, sports clothes, and if your temperature goes up, then it's open to the fabric automatically. So there's all these new things coming, but you can still build things out of good old-fashioned felt. Then you add a layer of electronic parts. What do you want your construction to do? You want to have lights, or sounds, or motors, or vibrate, or buzzers. You can add all these things that are being made specifically for sewing into wearable technology. You need power. There are small batteries available that make your wearable portable. Now, you've got parts. The third part is connecting them. How do you connect the sound to the microcontroller, the LED to the battery? You can use traditional ways like wire. You can solder that together. You can twist it together. You can use materials that happen to be conductive, like pipe cleaners. Pipe cleaners are conductive. They can be used to make a circuit. Or you can use some new materials like conductive thread. So when you sew a circuit, the thread is part of your circuit. There are new materials like conductive yarn, conductive fabric, conductive paint. There are soft printed circuit boards where you can print, create a circuit board of your own design and make it out of fabric. Now, the fourth thing is for those brave pioneers who want to add the ultimate in interactivity to your construction. Microcontrollers. There are 2 primary microcontrollers that people use in wearables, the lily pad and the flora. I'm going to talk about both of these a little bit. There are others. Certainly nothing wrong with them, but these tend to be the things that most people use. So let me go back to construction. When we talk about construction, well, that may seem like the simplest part, but it's the basis for everything you do. So you want to make sure that the fabrics you choose, the materials you choose, are age appropriate and easy for your kids to use. It's harder for kids to sew with flimsy materials and little tiny needles. It's just not age appropriate. For young kids, felt is great. This material is great for soft sewing, because you can put a needle through it, but it's got a lot of stability. You could also stick copper tape to this and use that as a conductive element instead of thread. So there's a lot of really interesting materials you can do at the craft store. The plastic grid for embroidery, not only is it nice and easy to use, it's got a coordinate system built into it. You can count things with it. Now, sewing is actually pretty hard. When you think about it, you're creating a 3-dimensional sculpture in space, and then you're expecting it to fit around something, your wrist, around your neck. Sewing can be actually something that is worth taking time to do. In the original portable kindergarten, the lace-up part was one of the primary things that they gave kids to say to help their eye and hand coordination. It's still good. But sewing machines are very cool too. And I'm certainly not saying that girls love sewing and boys love robots. Boys, sewing machines are very cool. If you've ever seen a boy with a sewing machine, they take to it quite well. These kinds of construction techniques are also well known in your community. That means that parents and grandparents can participate in something that's pretty high tech. And their skills are extremely valuable when learning how to work off a pattern or make your own patterns or how to use a sewing machine. Parents and kids can work together on this. It values the skills of the parents even if they don't feel like they're, you know, with the future or understand technology or something, they can help out with these things. So let me show you some futuristic fabrication technology. Fabrication using 3D printing.
My name is Ellie Ferry. I just graduated from Chicago College of Design. I wanted to create a ready-to-wear collection printed entirely at home using printers that anyone can get. I've spent the past year searching for the best solution. I worked with leading experts in the field. I really like the result. It looks a little bit like face. And it moves beautifully. Just imagine the potential. If you're called to print your own jacket, traveling with no luggage, just print your clothes in the hotel room. Will we soon be able to design, share, and print our own clothes directly from home?
When you think about 3D printing, and those of you who have 3D printers, you're thinking, if the stuff that prints is not wearable, right? It'd be like trying to wear a jacket made out of Lego. It's not how we build it. And yet, she's not using special materials. The thing she's done is taken mathematics, the mathematics of knotting, the mathematics of mind, and figured out ways to make these chains that move, that are made out of regular PLA. Regular materials that you would use in your 3D printers. So don't think of wearables as only electronics. Think of the design process as a way that you can use anything you can get your hands on to make a wearable collection. Here's like earrings, 3D printed earrings at this community center. They make them themselves to support their STEM program. It says, when I see a 3D printed Lego blade, it can only mean one thing. You support STEM education for our youth that learn to teach each other. That's a community center in Boston, and they have to raise a lot of money to provide kids with experiences that they're not getting in their schools. So, if you've got the construction figured out, you know what you want to make, you know what you want to make it out of, next you can have electronic parts. And what's available out there? Kind of breaks down into 3 areas: input and control, output, and portable power. So input and control can be very simple. You have a switch that turns your wearable on and turns your wearable off. And they make these switches that are easy to sew. Those round ends are meant to be sewn into things. For more complex projects, you can add in sensors that take information of the world. A light sensor says, how light is it in the room? It's either very light or not light at all. And that information can be used by a microcontroller to do something based on that information. They make sensors that read light, read sound, UV, acceleration, GPS position, and then output. So once you've taken input from the world, what are you going to do? Are you going to make a sound? Are you going to buzz a buzzer? Are you going to turn on a light? So there's all these components that you can add to your wearable that show off what you've decided to do. And then portable power, because you certainly don't want to wear a jacket that's connected to your. You need to be free to move around. Most wearables use either coin cell batteries, which you've seen at the pharmacy, or what they call lithium batteries. They're called lipos. These that connect directly into the microcontroller. With these 2 power sources, you can then disconnect from your computer and off you go. So for a circuited wearable, you might have something like this: a coin cell battery in a solo battery holder which makes one of those little positive and one of those little as negative. The positive lead goes to the positive lead, the negative leads go to the negative leads, and in doing so, you created this goes from the batteries through the components back to the battery again. If you created a circuit that works, your light turns on. Now, the reason that a lot of wearables use these components is because if you stick to coin cell batteries and these small light codes, you can't hurt yourself. You can't get shocked. You can't blow up an LED. So it's kind of a compatible environment where you can kind of give these things to kids and you know the vermin LEDs. Sometimes the LEDs actually, the plastic part pop off and fly away. So you don't want that to happen. By sticking to these low power, you kind of prevent that. So how can you make that a little fancier? Well, you can put a switch in there. Now, when you put a switch in, it breaks that circuit. It's off, the light turns on. When you flip the switch, it reconnects your circuit, your light turns back on again. Now, that's the building block for a ton of wearables. That battery can be hidden anywhere. That wire, those dotted lines, could be wire or conductive thread that could be running up through your jacket, and LEDs could be on top of the collar or wherever you want them. That LED could be a buzzer or a speaker or something else. So now we've got two parts, the base, the parts. Now we've got to connect them all together. There's a lot of ways to connect things in wearables. You can actually use everyday materials like aluminum foil and pipe cleaners. Pipe cleaners are conductive. That glove, it's hard to see the LEDs on the tips of the fingers, but it lights it like a power glove with using pipe cleaners as wires. There's a lot of new ways to do it. Conductive thread, conductive yarn, you can sew the circuit. And there's more things coming in the future. There's going to be better materials, better conductive fabric, conductive glue, conductive tack, biomaterials that act as some of the transmission devices. And there's places on the web where you can learn how to do this stuff. For example, is a video by super awesome Sylvia. She's a YouTube star and a Maker Movement star, and here she explains how to create a wearable stuffed animal.
The copper cardboard and through electronics can actually be replaced by cloth, and the traces replaced with conductive thread, allowing objects to light up, and still be huggable and very friendly. Today we'll show you how to make a very glowing and color you can sew together with very essentials. Let's go! For the sew-tastic metals, we will need the Sturma LED sewing kit from the Maker Check, about a quarter yard of scrap with single pieces of fabric or other material, some yarn, polyester or cotton stuffing, fabric glue, pins, scissors, chalk, crayon, or pencil to temporarily mark the fabric, needle nose pliers, and last but not least, a sewing needle and thread, sewing machine option. Find a nice boxing and get creative. Start trying out the basic shape of your monster under material. Try to avoid any really thin body parts and factory slices of it, and everything will shrink in one step. Once you're happy with your shape, make sure there's another layer of fabric underneath, pin both together, and carefully cut out the monster about 6 millimeters, a 1/4 inch, outside of the line. With your finished, cut, and pinned material, make sure the inside is on the outside and the outside is on the inside. Then take your needle and thread and start sewing the two pieces together around the edge of the back stitch, or just use your sewing machine. Start at one side of the head and work all the way around until you're almost on the other side of the head, making sure to leave the hole big enough to put your hand through. Now push your monster pocket inside. This hides and protects the seam. Once fully inverted, it's time to draw out your monster's face. With the eyes placed, measure the distance between them and cut 2 lengths of conductive thread about double that length. Now to prep the LEDs. Carefully curl the leaves in towards the top of your flowers, a square for the long ones on each side, and a circle for ground. Now tag the 2 cup threads to each leaf, square to square, circle to circle. Next, pinch and cut a tiny slit through each eye for the LEDs. Shake these snug. Place the LEDs into your monster and glue them in. Now take a new length of conductive thread and sew it in. Ensure you make good contact with the square positive thread underneath. From there, sew your way to the back of the monster, where we'll place the backpack. Stitch it in at least 3 times to make sure the battery stays put. Water in another thread surrounding the side and make your way back again. But instead of attaching straight to the battery, we sew on one side of the button from the kit on a piece of felt, and the other side to the back. This becomes a fabric-friendly switch for your cuddle monster's eyes. Once it's all sewn up, snap the button together and it's alive! Yes! Try facial features, colorful eyes, clothes, and anything else to make your creature sticky. Now to stuff. Take little bits of stuffing and poke them into all corners of your monster. Then sew the top of his head. Add some hair on the top. And you're done! Remember, anytime he needs to wake up, just snap the snap. You probably have a bit more thread left. What else can you do with it? So pass into a jacket connected to a dry for your fairy and little cuts. Sew them through your gloves to keep your fingers warm, while still being able to use your active touchscreens. Make a moment for a switch by putting a bit on either side of the metal zipper. Hooked up to another wheel, you've got an awesome backpack warmer. Try designing something on your own, or check what other people have done online. Either way, inspiration is everywhere. That's all we have for this episode. Remember to subscribe and other uses for conducting fun. Be happy, never give up, get out there and make something.
So I think she was 8 when they made that video. Yeah, she's 14 now. There's terrific videos to share with the kids. But what she's done is very easy to repeat, right? I mean, watching that video, and if you have some materials, you can do that with your kids. This is the simplest circuit you can make, right? So battery, LED, you just turn the light bulb on. And for kindergartners, if you wrap masking tape around this and decorate a cardboard castle or a headband or something, you're done. As they get older, you start to extend, right? With the LEDs farther away, you need conductive thread, but you can start really, really simply. And make things that are fun. Make things that use snaps as switches. Make a present for mom. Make a feel meter where you turn the little knob and it attaches to different conductive threads. And little kids can do this too. Don't be afraid to experiment with mixed materials. That circuit's got a aluminum foil, an alligator clip, who knows what else, and is on a piece of burlap and decorated with other kinds of sewing. There's no right way to do this. And, if you take a few things down, it's okay, right? It can all be part of the decoration. As the things get more complicated, you can use these alligator clips to prototype your circuit. You can see there's like, I think 3 or 4 people holding different parts of the circuit and planning it out with things alligator clipped together. These alligator clips will be replaced by thread or wire when the thing actually gets sewn in. But they're trying it out first. They're prototyping. So a couple of shopping tips. The vendors I use most for this stuff, Spark Fun, Adafruit, and Maker Shed, they all give educator discounts. Educator days at Michael's and Joann's are absolutely, you probably know this already. Inventtolearn.com/stuff has shopping lists, resources, handouts, and a lot of other things. There's a Google group called K12makers.com that you can join, and people are incredibly friendly, sharing the curriculum. Karen Bloomberg is on it, and she's very nice. She will answer your questions. And then if you want bulk parts, because look at the prices here. You want to pay $4.99 for this battery, or do you want to pay 10 cents for this battery? You choose. right? You can go down to CVS and spend $49.99, or you can brave a website that looks intimidating at first called DigiKey, and all you need is the part number, CR2032, and you can buy them for 10 to 30 cents a piece, right? eBay is another good place to do that. You might have to convince your school that eBay is not, you're not just shopping for shoes or something. You're actually shopping for classroom materials. There's lots of resources on the InventToLearn.com resources page. There are websites that have plans and patterns and grading projects to share, like the soft circuit handout, this Publicon website. And you can do perfectly wonderful wearables if you stop there, right? Your basic fabric, your electronic parts, your conductive materials, you can have fantastic wearables, but brave pioneers can have a little more. If you go to that fourth step and add microcontrollers, you can have some really spectacular wearables. You're adding interactivity, you're adding programming, you're adding computation, feedback, understanding sensors and sensor data to your wearable projects. And look, you don't have to teach coding and teach electronics. This is a way to bring it all together. The two microcontrollers that are most used in wearable products are the LilyPad, which was invented by Leah Beakley when she was a professor at MIT Media Lab. She ran her own group called the Low High Tech Department. And it was a way to value low technology in combination with high technology. And almost everything that we use as wearables today came out of her work and work with her graduate students. The Flora is something, and because the LilyPad is open source, there are many variations. And one of the variations is called the Flora. The Flora is sold by a vendor named Adafruit. They're not that different from the LilyPad in concept. When you get down to the basic details, of course there are differences. But this is all open source hardware and software. So it may be a little intimidating at first when you look at these, because there can be quite a different variation on sizes and types and what they do. And you sort of just have to skim the parts you don't understand and follow some maybe kits or directions for a while. But then you'll start to understand what it is that they're talking about. The great thing about these wearables is it raises the microcontrollers, it raises wearable projects to the same level as robotics or high-tech projects that you can do with other materials. For example, on the left, the top left is a magic 8-ball made with an Arduino. You can program it, you can decide what it's going to say. There's a sensor on it. When you shake it, it changes the sayings. Right below that, ballet slippers that track dance movements, right? And you might think, well, boys are interested in robots and girls are interested in ballet shoes. That's not always true. But it just gives all kinds of kids on-ramps to the same thing. Because what you have to do to make those two projects are very similar. You have to design it, you have to understand the components, you have to try it and debug it and troubleshoot it, and program behind it, and then troubleshoot that, make the whole thing work, and then make it better. And those same steps are happening whether you're using a LilyPad that happens to be round and purple, or an Arduino that happens to be blue and square. So the LilyPads are an Arduino. They're just a different shape. They're made for sewing. Those round pads, meaning you can flip alligator clips to them nicely, or sew to them, or solder wires. The form factor is good for fabrics. So the LilyPad Arduino is an Arduino microcontroller. It has lots of ports, you can attach lots of sensors, but you can buy simpler ones. So there is a LilyPad Simple, there's a LilyPad that works with Bluetooth, there's a LilyPad that works with has a built-in MP3 player. If your project is very sound, has a lot of sound in it. There's a Lily Tiny, and it really is tiny. I mean, it's much smaller, just because there was any room on the slide. But Tiny is a lot tinier than the regular Arduino. Here's the size of an Arduino, which is center swivel thing. That's a LilyPad Arduino. And the Tinies are about half that size. The LilyPad Tiny just blinks lights. It doesn't have a microcontroller, so it's sort of an in-between just lights and adding a microcontroller. And with the LilyPad comes all kinds of sensors made in a way that's easy to sew in, light sensors. You UV sensors, temperature sensors, all kinds of different LEDs and all kinds of different patterns, switches, things, buttons, things you can control your creation with. So you can make something like this.
Depending on how much light there is, will change how much sound and blinkiness we get. So if I turn the light on, it'll get really slow. I turn that off, it's fast again, and then put my hand in front of it. Starts to get really fast.
So with the parts I just showed you, you can make that. And how you do it is an iterative design process. You start thinking about what you want your pillow to do, right? I want my pillow to blink faster when the light is dark. Or I want my pillow to blink the lights faster when the light is high. You can do either one. You figure out the software it takes to make that happen. You design the hardware, including the embroidery, the fabric, so your base, your electronic parts, your connections. You create it, and then you program the computer. You program in your computer using an IDE, as an integrated development environment. You program it and say, when the light sensor reading is such and such, do this to the speaker. And then you download it to your microcontroller. So your lily pad is sitting on the pillow, right? And at some point, you've got to connect it to your computer. You download the program to the lily pad, you unplug your computer, you add a battery to your microcomputer, and it doesn't work. Because these things never work, right, the first time? So you try it again, right? And maybe the lights don't turn on. And then maybe the lights turn on, but the sound doesn't happen. The sound happens, and it happens whether the room is light or dark. So you iterate, you figure it out, you debug, you troubleshoot, you make it better. Maybe you have a better idea. Maybe you can add more lights. This is the iterative design process. And when you're done, you unplug your computer, and your lily pad microcomputer runs as long as the battery lasts. And then you can recharge the battery and do it again. Because the lily pad remembers your program. It doesn't turn off. When the battery runs out, the program stays there. So you put in a new battery, it starts right back up. So that's most of the lily pads I buy. I buy mine through SparkFun. That's one of the vendors. Adafruit kind of has a different version of lily pads they call floras and gems. So the flora has GPS built in. So it's really good for projects where you want, for example, a jacket that tells you where you are. And the gemma is super tiny, but very powerful. And you know, you could look at both of these and decide what you want. People tend to kind of stay in one world, or kind of in the Adafruit world, or kind of the SparkFun world. Doesn't mean you can't mix and match. For example, if I went to the Adafruit and website and bought one of their microcontrollers, bought a NeoPixel LED ring, they just happen to be a ring, and bought a lithium battery, I could make this. So you can see this is a start of a wearable project. And what is it? We've got our microcontroller. We've got our LiPo battery to make it run. We've got wires to connect the microcontroller to the output devices, which we've added a NeoPixel ring, which has a really cool ring-like effect. And we've got some extra LEDs. And now that you know how to make that, when you go to Hackaday, you can make this. I wouldn't send the kids there, but looking at that jacket